Good evening. Before we begin, may I ask you to arrive before the alarm, not only the clock alarm, but the alarm of the world. We are not here to whip up faith against fear. We are here to be still long enough for truth to be felt as present. Protection does not begin with running to meet a crisis. Protection begins when we consent to order, to a holy quiet, to the arrangement of our inner house so that God may be recognized in it. Now, whether this is your first time hearing these words or your 50th, let me say it plainly. Meditation is the most important part of our work. Stillness is not retreat. Stillness is the most important part of protective work. Everything else is secondary. We live in an age that endlessly rings the bell. Fear-based news cycles, predictions, markets up and down, politics roaring, health scares in bright red banners, pockets buzzing, screens flashing, opinions marching in parade formation. And all of it says, watch, watch, or you will be caught off guard. Watch, or you will be lost. Now the paradox. Let me explain the reason for this next statement. By watching for danger, you are silently consenting to a universe of danger. And the fruit of that consent is exhaustion, not safety. You have made fear your master hour, and you try to beat it by looking harder. All of that is nonsense. You cannot outstare fear and be free of it. You cannot organize life around urgency and find protection. You will only organize more urgency. Protection is realized when we step out of that agreement and return to the order of spirit. The order is this: there is a presence at hand, and it does the watching. There is a government not formed by headlines and not subject to polls. Our part is to abide until that presence is felt, known, and recognized as authority. Now, if that stillness is well established, if that meditation is well done, the rest of the hour need not take place, because the protection is already present before your foot crosses the threshold of the day. The Father knoweth our need before we ask. Protection is not a product of our nervous system, but the activity of God realized. Let me explain the reason why protection is found in abiding rather than in mental wrestling. Wrestling acknowledges a second power. Wrestling takes hold of shadows and calls them opponents. Abiding withdraws consent. In abiding, we are not passive, we are obedient. We are not collapsing, we are consenting to the divine order, to the law that is already set within us. And in that consent, fear loses its authority. Right action, the next necessary step, the quiet no and the quiet yes, unfold of themselves. So I say to you, arrange your life to arrive before the alarm. Sit down before the roar begins. Close the door before the clamor presents its case. Give the first minutes not to scanning, but to stillness, not to checking, but to communion. Make this your foundation. Protection begins when you stop organizing around urgency and return to the stillness where God is felt as present. Now, do this faithfully, and you will discover that vigilance ends not by stronger watching, but by deeper recognition. Now, having settled that we are to arrive before the alarm, let us correct the false assignment that has worn you out. The human impulse is to fight darkness with more activity in the mind, to argue with it, to stack reasons against it, to paste affirmations over it like labels over a crack, to scan for it, to prepare for it, to brace for it. And of course, when the pulse quickens, you call it vigilance. You sharpen thoughts as weapons. You practice slogans as though they were shields. You build files and plans and backup plans, and you say, "Now I am safe." Let me explain the reason you are not. In that very moment, you have accepted a world of two powers, and you have taken employment in the office of fear. When you take darkness as an opponent, you grant it substance. You give it reality. You give it presence. You give it power. And, this is the worst of it, you give it a dwelling place in your attention. You move its furniture in and pay its rent with your hours. You make its case for it by watching it, measuring it, projecting it, and muttering, "If I don't, I'll be caught." All of that is nonsense. To set yourself against evil by mental force is to enter evil's arena and breathe evil's air. The mind begins to box with its own shadows, and the more rapid the swinging, the more convinced you become that there is something there that must be hit. Resist not evil was not given as a poetic sentence. It is a statement of law. You cannot resist a shadow into light. You must turn on the light. Now we come to the binary of it. And I want you to let it be as simple as day and night. Either we live by effects or we live by cause. Effects are the news, the symptoms, the opinions, the statistics, the forecasts, the memories of yesterday, the gossip of tomorrow. Effects are always late. They are never the source. And when we fight an effect with another effect, fear with argument, anxiety with clever affirmations, we are like a branch cut off, trying to green itself by will. Nonsense. Cause is within. Cause is the infinite invisible, the presence at hand. Cause does not combat. Cause governs. Cause does not brace. Cause is. So then, what is the protective act, if it is not struggle? It is the refusal to consent to a second power. It is the quiet turning from effect to cause, from the screen of the world to the place within where the word is not spoken but heard. It is abiding until the sense of presence is realized, until there is that inward recognition that ends the argument because there is nothing left to argue with. In that recognition, darkness has no occupation, because you have withdrawn the only salary it ever drew, your attention and your fear. Stay with that, and you will find that protection is not achieved by fencing the yard of your mind. It is realized by dwelling in the house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Now let me tell you exactly what I mean by protective stillness, so there can be no confusion about collapse or passivity. Protective stillness is not a slackening of responsibility. It is not indifference. It is not lying down under circumstance. Protective stillness is conscious union with God. It is the awareness of a presence that is the only power, and therefore it is the end of the instinct to manufacture safety. You cannot engineer protection out of mental lumber. You realize it when the One is recognized as present and governing. That is not a philosophy. That is a shift of place. You step from the market of effects into the sanctuary of cause. And in that sanctuary, safety is realized, not made. Now, prayer must be re-educated to serve this. Stop praying for outcomes as if God were down the street, as if God needed your plan, your timetable, your panic to be informed. All of that is nonsense. We do not go to God to audition our fears. We go to God for an audience, for communion. Prayer, real prayer, is listening, receptivity, yielding. It is the silencing of the request long enough for you to hear that the Father knoweth your need before you ask. And more than that the Father is the law, the life, the safety of you. In that hearing, fear is dismissed from its post without a struggle. Abiding, then, is not a clever trick of attention for 30 seconds while you peek at the headlines. Abiding is remaining with the inner, staying home in the place where fear cannot issue commands. It is letting your attention rest where the word is born, not where rumors are printed. You abide as a branch abides in its vine, without effort, without boasting, without personal engineering, drawn, fed, and held by that which is greater than your thought. And because you abide, sap flows. Because you abide, life circulates. Because you abide, what had seemed danger is found without authority in you. Let me explain the reason guidance and protection appear in this way. When you establish conduct with your source, when contact is made with the infinite invisible, there is a movement from within that goes out before you. Calm comes first, then instruction, then action that has no strain in it. Ideas arrive you did not invent. Doors open you did not push. Compulsions to rush fall off because there is nothing left to race after. The Father within you, He doeth the works. This is not poetry. It is the order of spiritual government. Now then, once you see what protection is, presence realized, you will also see why constant vigilance is unnecessary. Vigilance is the posture of a sentinel on a border between two powers. Abiding is the life of one who knows there is no border and no second power. As you practice this conscious union, watch how the body unbraces, how the mind ceases to scan, and how the next right step appears without your driving it. Then you will understand why I say again, meditation is the most important part of our work, for it is in that holy quiet that conduct is established, and in that conduct that safety is known. Now we must take up the root of unshakability, because unless you see the root, you will go on hardening the bark and wonder why the tree still shakes. Unshakability is not toughness. Unshakability is not gritting the teeth and memorizing more arguments than yesterday. Unshakability is source connection. And let me explain the reason you have felt so very tired. Most of us have been living by effects, one fear leaning upon another fear. The headline leans upon a memory. The memory leans upon an imagination. The imagination leans upon the body. The body leans upon stimulants and statistics. And the whole lean-to shakes in the first wind. That is effect living. It is a life composed of echoes, and you are trying to get your security from the echo rather than from the voice. Now, effect living produces fatigue because it is the posture of a branch cut off, trying to live without the vine. You can see it in the mirror, and in the market, and in the home. Mentally it withers, confusion, fast thoughts, slow wisdom. Morally it withers, panic bargains with conscience, and you call it being practical. Physically it withers, nerves recruiting muscles for a war that never ends, digestion conscripted, sleep made a hired guard. Financially it withers, income tied to rumor, savings tied to forecast, and the soul trying to budget safety as if safety were coin. All of this is the branch attempting to draw sap from its own bark. All of that is nonsense. A branch does not make sap, and you cannot make life by vigilance. Now hear the simple law given us. I am the vine, ye are the branches. Apart from me, ye can do nothing. A branch does not strain for sap. It abides, and fruit appears. It does not wake in the night to count leaves. It does not keep an eye on the neighboring branch for comparison or competition. It abides. And because it abides, life flows. Because it abides, storms pass, and there is still greening. Because it abides, fruit appears in its season, without a calendar or a plan. That is source living. That is unshakability, not reinforced bark, but unbroken conduct with the root. Now then, Make the spiritual logic explicit so that your practice can be honest. Protection is not in predicting threats. Protection is in being where the life is. You are safe, not because you have outguessed tomorrow, but because you are dwelling in the awareness of the One who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The Father within, He doeth the works. Our safety is realized where God is known as presence. Our guidance is born there. Our next step is given there. When you are in Source, effects have no authority to govern you. They report, but they do not rule. If this is true, and it is, then meditation is not an elective. Meditation is the most important part of our work. Not as a technique to quiet nerves for a day, but as the primary mechanism by which conduct is established with the infinite invisible. Sit down, close the ledger of effects, and listen. Let the mind cease from its scanning and become receptive. Let the heart retire from its negotiations and become willing. In that communion, you are returned to the vine. In that union, unshakability is the natural condition. And you will find that the energy you once spent bracing against the world is now released into living by the word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Now we come to the moment at which all of this leaves the page and steps into your body. And I want you to hear me quietly, because it is simple and it is sure. There is a moment, sometimes late, sometimes early, sometimes right in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, when something within says, yes. And that yes is not your mind. It is as if a gear that had been grinding slides into place. I call it the click. And at that click, fear loses its commission. It does not argue. It resigns. The noise does not end. Your consent to it ends. And protection, which we have been naming as presence, becomes felt, not believed. Let me explain the reason we speak of a click and not a clap of thunder. Many of you have known calm. You can manufacture calm. You can count to 10. You can breathe 4 counts in and 6 counts out. You can walk around the block. That is emotional management, and there is a place for order in the body. But recognition is not manufactured. Recognition is received. Calm can lower the volume. Recognition turns on the light. Calm still wants a guarantee. Recognition has no need of one. Calm may check the lock twice. Recognition knows the door is under a higher government and moves on. How will you know the difference without dramatics? The breath settles of itself. You do not command it to settle. It takes its place as if it remembers where to sit. The compulsion to check, phone, door, symptoms, opinions, lets you go. There is a soft release from the leash of what if. The mind stops demanding guarantees. It no longer bargains for safety. You are not hypnotized. You are present. And in that presence, there is a quiet, factual sense. God is here. Not as a sentence in a book, not as a promise in a future, but as the only fact in the room. Be still and know that I am God is no longer a command you obey. It is the condition you are in. Now, whether this is your first time or your 21st, I am going to tell you the what of it. That click is natural to you. It is not a gift reserved for a few. It is not the prize for ascetics. It is the self remembering itself. The inner conduct with your source is native. The branch is built for the vine. And so do not strain for a sensation, and do not scold yourself if a day passes without a firework. Sit, listen, become receptive, and let the recognition come on its own terms. It will. and it will again, and then again. Why is this protective in a way your vigilance never was? Because when fear is no longer your advisor, you stop making fear-based decisions that generate harm. You do not overbuy, overpromise, overtreat, overtalk. You do not rush into alliances to quiet loneliness. You do not sign contracts to silence headlines. You do not say yes to appease a phantom. The Father within, He doeth the works. And from that interior governance, action proceeds without penalty. At the click, the government shifts. You are no longer managed by effects. You are conducted by cause. And there, protection is not a fence you keep mending. It is a presence you keep recognizing. Now we must take up prayer. Because unless prayer is corrected, you will return to the old habit of asking for safety and wake again under the same sentinel's strain. Let me explain the reason for that. Petition implies absence. To ask God to remove danger is to announce that danger has a seat and God must be persuaded to take one. All of that is nonsense. Your heavenly Father knoweth your need before you ask. The government is already His. It does not begin when you become eloquent. Petition keeps you fascinated with the very thing you think you are escaping. It keeps the mind scanning darkness to build a stronger case for the request. Every "please protect me" rehearses danger. And while you rehearse, you forget to recognize. Now, if petitionary prayer were the way, we would have demonstrated it by now. Think back over wars, panics, depressions, epidemics, centuries of pleading, loud public prayers and whispered private ones. Did that model prevent the tides of history? No. And I am not speaking cynically. I am speaking law. Prayer is not control of events. Prayer is realization of presence. We are not managers of God. We are witnesses of God. The Father within me, He doeth the works. When prayer becomes a technique for steering headlines, it slips into magic and inevitably into disappointment. When prayer becomes communion, it returns to its rightful nature. Silence, receptivity, listening for the word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God now. So hear the replacement clearly. Go to God for an audience, not an audition. Do not bring your resume of fears and your list of recommendations as if to secure employment for grace. Go empty, go quiet, go receptive. Sit without arguments, without bargaining, without blueprints. Let the heart say, "Speak, Lord," and then be still. In that stillness, you are not informing God. You are being informed of God. The shift is from telling to hearing, from demanding to yielding, from orchestrating to being conducted. And in that hearing, the sense of protection arises because presence is recognized as the only law operating. How does safety show itself under such prayer? Not by fireworks, but by government. An inner restraint halts a call you were rushing to make, and the very delay proves to be your shield. A nudge moves you to leave 10 minutes early, and you miss the entanglement you never knew waited. An impulse to apologize dissolves a quarrel before it swells into litigation. A road is not taken, and you cannot say why until later. A meeting is taken, and you find provision that you did not plan. Timing adjusts, doors open or remain closed, and you are quietly placed, fed and housed and clothed and secured, not by your vigilance, but by the movement of the infinite invisible through your awareness. Those things happen from outside, while the conduct within is firm. Now then, this is not accomplished by bursts of emergency prayer. This is the fruit of a practiced stillness. Meditation is the most important part of our work, because only there does the ear learn the sound of the shepherd and the mind cease its lobbying. We will not be running to God with sirens. We will be abiding until the click comes and the next right step is given. Make ready for that discipline, for in the next period we will outline a simple, faithful practice by which petition ends and communion becomes your daily protection. Now we take up the practice itself. And I want you to treat this with the same seriousness you would give to your most binding appointment. Set an appointment with God. The same time each day. If your day begins at 7, then be seated at about 6:40 so that by quarter to the hour you are in place. And for 15 minutes you are not available to the world. Do not rush into silence. Arrive early inwardly. Let the body be unhurried, the breath unforced, the room undisturbed. Turn off the instruments of alarm. Close the door, yes, but more than that, close the campaigns of the mind that plan to fix, to argue, to persuade. Begin with the surrender of combat. Say within yourself, not loudly, not with strain, simply as orientation. I am not here to fight appearances. I am here to know God. Let that sentence end the hiring of fear as your advisor. Let it dismiss the courtroom of mental argument. Then become still. If the mind is noisy, do not scold it, and do not recruit phrases as weapons. We are not here to beat the mind into quiet. We are here to abide until presence is recognized. Now, take one line of scripture in the old tongue, not to argue with life, but to settle into life. Abide in me. Or, if that is not your line today, be still and know that I am God. Do not parade many texts. One is sufficient. Lay it gently in consciousness, as you might place a child in its bed, and then stop rocking it. Rest with it. Let the words do their own work. You are not pushing, you are consenting. You are not manufacturing a feeling, you are making room for recognition. After a minute or two, release even the line and listen. Simply listen, not for words necessarily, but for the sense of presence, however faint at first. It may be no more than the breath taking its rightful place, or the shoulders coming off their hooks. Stay with it. If thought gallops off to headlines, do not chase it. Return to abide in me. Place it quietly, and listen again. Meditation is the most important part of our work because here, conduct is established with the infinite invisible, and contact, quiet, regular contact, becomes conduct. Now, at some point, some mornings sooner, some mornings later, there will be a nudge. Do not dramatize it. It may be as simple as, call this person, cancel that appointment, rest, speak gently here, wait. That is protection taking form as right action. Do not rush to gather many orders. One is sufficient for a day. If no instruction comes, the peace itself is instruction, and you will find that its government goes before you. When the 15 minutes conclude, do not spring up as if from a fire drill. Let the last half minute be thanksgiving without words. Then rise and obey, quietly, without argument. Consistency is the law. Not intensity, not fireworks, not spiritual athletics. The same chair, the same hour, the same consent. Do this faithfully, and you will discover that vigilance is being replaced. Fear resigns because you are under new management. The Father within you, He doeth the works. Now we take up the moment when it all seems to fly from you. The phone flashes red banners. A notification pings with a word like urgent. A sentence lands in your ear that feels like a slap. A number in an account dips. A sensation in the body shouts for management. The mind wants to mobilize. It wants to form a committee in a second, draft a statement, issue orders, and press send. And let me say to you with the same certainty with which we said it about prayer, all of that is nonsense. That first scramble is the worship of effects. Now, wait. That is the first word. Wait. Not the weight of passivity, not the weight of collapse, but the sacred half-step back before thought becomes warfare. Close your mouth. Lower the hand from the keyboard. Let the eyes be still. Even if you are standing in a hallway or sitting at a desk, take the inward step to the secret place. 1 second is enough. 2 is wealth. Father within. That is the turn. Not a sentence to fix the world, not a spell, but the address that returns you to cause. Now then, do not pretend there is no report. Acknowledge it as a report. A message has arrived. A symptom has presented. A tone has risen in the room. Yes, but it is not law. It is not power. It is not presence. Refuse it jurisdiction without denying that it knocked. This refusal is your protection. It withdraws your consent to a second power and ends the occupation of fear over your next move. Be still and know, right there, right then. Let the mental movie flicker without your attention to power it. The projector slows when the audience leaves. Because of your morning abiding, the turn will be swift. A breath takes its rightful place, and in that breath there is governance. The compulsion to scroll dissolves. The finger does not reach for the screen. The mouth does not fire the retaliatory sentence that would purchase 3 days of regret. The hand does not sign the fear-driven order or the panicked sale. You wait, not as delay, but as consent to be conducted. And in seconds there is a nudge. Speak gently. Ask a question instead of making an accusation. Postpone this decision until afternoon. Take this simple step now, or be silent. That is protection taking form as sanity. In an angry conversation, the reset spares you from joining the riot. You hear the pain behind the words and answer the person, not the noise. With a sudden financial tremor, the reset breaks the mesmerism of numbers. You do not mortgage your peace to a graph. With a bodily alarm, the reset dismisses imagination from its throne. You take the next right step as given without theater or terror. This is not delay of action. This is purification of motive. Presence governs, and action follows without penalty. So make this your on-the-spot order. Now, wait. Refuse consent to appearances as law. Turn inward, Father within. Remain until the sense of presence is felt, even faintly, and let the next step be taken from there. In that instant of alarm, protection is not your vigilance. It is your refusal to give fear authority. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Now we must speak of proof, because some of you, having waited, having refused consent, are asking, how then does this reach me? How does it take form? Let me tell you what of it. When conduct is established with your source, when you are abiding, not visiting, harmonies appear that you did not engineer. They are not the result of new cleverness. They are the fruit of an inner government. And they come, more often than not, by a door you did not even know your house had. Those things happen from outside. You will find that timely information arrives without your search party. A sentence overheard, a line in a book you were not planning to open, a message that just happened to be delayed one day. And in that delay, a danger passes. You will see that problems postpone themselves, not forever, but long enough for wisdom to meet them. A quarrel cools without your speech. A meeting is rescheduled, and the heat goes out of the matter. Reconciliations take place where you had already rehearsed your defense. A softness enters a hard room. Health steadiness begins to show itself as a quiet normal, not a daily drama. Strength for the hours at hand. Rest when rest is due. A body no longer drafted into a war of thought. Supply arrives without siege. A bill is met, not by the trick, but by a right contact at a right time. A check you did not anticipate. An assignment you did not solicit. And the mystery of right place/right time reveals itself. You turn left instead of right and walk into the answer. You leave 5 minutes later and miss a snarl that would have tangled your day. You reach for one object and find instead the name, the address, the lead that opens a path. You did not make these. The Father within you, He doeth the works. Now, let me explain the reason for this without flattery. These are not rewards for good behavior. This is not wages for piety. All of that is nonsense. This is law. When the branch abides, sap flows. When the pipe is joined, water runs. When the contact is made, conduction occurs. It is not your merit. It is the nature of the one who is your life. Do not confuse this with mental magic or optimistic daydreaming. We are not hypnotizing events. We are yielding to government. Presence governs, and the governance appears as order. You may say, coincidence. All right. Then look back over your own life and find the coincidences you did not buy. Where were you kept without knowing why? When did you forget the keys and avoid the tangle you learned of later? When did a wrong number become a right introduction? When did a delay save you? When did a word, spoken almost casually, spare you 3 years of walking the wrong road? And how many times did supply meet you at the last hour, though you could not have arranged it? Be honest with yourselves. You were being kept. Protection did not just begin tonight. You are only now consenting to recognize its source. Now then, let the proof do what proof is meant to do. Reassure you enough to return to abiding. Do not chase demonstrations. Let demonstrations follow. The ultimate protection is not that an outer entanglement gets cleared, though often it does. The ultimate protection is that fear loses jurisdiction in you. When fear is dismissed, you stop paying the penalties of fear-driven moves. Peace, quiet, factual, governing peace, takes authority. And even when winds blow, there is an interior steadiness that prevents harm from being multiplied by your own hands. From within to without, order proceeds. And you will find again and again that life is arranged by the source, not by your vigilance. And the works that appear are His. Now we come to the end of vigilance, and I want you to hear what ends it. Vigilance is the occupation of the separated sense of self. The self that trembles is a self convinced it lives at a distance from its life, a tenant on unfriendly land, a branch on the ground trying to pose as a tree. That is the human picture, earnest, exhausted, scanning the horizon for threats and favors. But the self, the true self, spelled with a capital S, is already one with the Father. It is not reaching, it is rooted. It is not securing, it is secured. Abiding does not improve that self, it reveals it. And when the self is recognized, vigilance becomes as unnecessary as a lock on the sun. Vigilance ends when separation ends. Let me explain the reason fear diminishes under this realization. Fear feeds upon the illusion of a second power. It lives on the report that you are alone in a hostile world, that cause is out there, that your life can be cut off from its source. All of that is nonsense. I am the vine, ye are the branches. Apart from me ye can do nothing, yes, but also abiding in me, ye wither not. In conscious union, the premise that fueled fear disappears, and without its premise, fear has no argument to make. It retires. Not because you argued it into a corner, but because the one presence recognized leaves no corner in which it can exist. Where there is light, the occupation of darkness ends of itself. Now then, a gentle correction, because some of you are ready to make a shrine to protection. Do not make an idol of protection. Do not measure your day by how successfully you dodged calamities or assembled proofs. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added. Make your work God realization. Make your prayer conscious union with God, and protection is included, like sap is included in the branch that abides. If you chase safety, you will court anxiety. If you realize God, you will find safety unnecessary to chase. How shall you live this? Not as a mood, but as a life. Reduce the inputs that cultivate vigilance. Stop grazing on alarms. You cannot keep your ear in the marketplace and your heart in the sanctuary at the same time. Choose intervals of silence, not as escape, but as governance. Keep your 15 minutes, yes, and add to it 2 or 3 brief pauses in the day in which you return to Father within. Let the eyes soften, the breath take its rightful place, the word abide whisper itself in you. Get in the habit of living with a Bible. Keep it close. Open to the 15th chapter of John and read it as living instruction, not as poetry. Read it until the words cease to be lines and become law. Abide in me, and I in you. Let that sentence be the place you sit, not a topic you discuss. And remember, meditation is the most important part of our work, because here the conduct is established and the branch remembers the vine. Now, as this integrates, you will notice something very simple. Your shoulders do not rise to guard the day. The mind does not patrol the fences. The sentinel is dismissed, not derelict. Dismissed because there is no border to watch, no second power to repel. Action will still be taken. Words will still be spoken. Decisions will still be made, but not as defense, as obedience. We end where we began, not with a fight, but with surrender. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Live as the branch that cannot be separated, and you will find that vigilance has no office left to occupy. Presence governs, and you rest. Now we come to the quiet and close. And I want you to carry one hierarchy out of this room as law. Meditation, abiding, is the most important part of our work. Everything else is secondary. Transcending in importance even our words tonight, even the helps, even the stories. The lessons themselves are secondary to meditation, because only in meditation is conduct established with your source. When conduct is established, guidance appears and protection is realized. When conduct is broken, the mind recruits vigilance and calls it wisdom. All of that is nonsense. You are not kept by your scan of the horizon. You are kept by dwelling in the presence that has already made the horizon and governs all that appears upon it. Now let me seal the paradox that is stood behind every sentence. You do not overcome darkness by wrestling it. You overcome darkness by abiding where darkness is not a factor. Wrestling gives a second power a promotion. Abiding withdraws consent and ends the occupation. Light does not fight. Light reveals. The effort to out-argue shadows is itself a species of shadow. Abide. Be still and know. In stillness, the one presence is recognized, and the fever of self-protection cools without debate. The branch does not police the orchard. It rests in the vine and bears fruit. Let us be quiet a moment. Not to achieve a mood, not to decorate the end of a meeting, but to acknowledge presence. Let the mental arms fall to the sides. No petition, no bargaining, no reports. Father within, that is enough. A breath takes its rightful place. The shoulders release their watch. The mind ceases its patrol and listens. In this listening, protection is no longer a project. It is the fact of God's government felt. Now, as you rest in that, let this surrender be your inner word, simple and sufficient. I do not battle appearances. I rest in conscious union. Let thy will be made manifest. Do not embroider it. Do not add a list of exceptions. Say it and mean it, and be still. In that consent, the government shifts from the personal to the divine, from managing to being conducted. And you will discover that right action rises of itself, gentle, precise, timely, free of the penalties that follow fear-driven moves. Whether this is your first sitting or your 21st, the promise is the same and it is sure. Keep your appointment. Hold to the practice. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things, guidance, order, supply, safety, shall be added. Not by your vigilance, but by the nature of the one who is your life. Protection is not my mind guarding my life. Protection is the Father within, revealing and sustaining life. And so we end as we began, not with a fight, but with surrender. The Father within me, he doeth the works. In that realization, you are fed and housed and clothed and secured, and you rest.